So the White House just released a tweet not too long ago, and it says the Republicans in Congress blocked President Biden's attempt to cut the cost of insulin to $35 a month for everyone, including hundreds of thousands of children with type 1 diabetes. And ironically, shortly thereafter, President Biden released a tweet that says, "When it comes to dark money in our politics, I believe sunlight is the best disinfectant." And the Disclose Act will begin to shed light on the dark money loophole. Let me know what you guys think about that. And the Disclose Act actually revealing information about politics and the money that they spend and or waste. And if you actually think that any of these it will reveal anything about our current president and his finances. But even more concerning than that is our current economy and inflation and the job market and folks out there basically struggling to make ends meet, living paycheck to paycheck, and are pretty much just one paycheck away from being homeless. And when asked, oftentimes, the solution, the backup plan, the strategy, there is none. I'll actually tell you a story about somebody that I know. And I asked them, I said, you know, not too long ago, how are things going? How's business? How's the family? You good? And they kind of brushed it off and gave you a basic generic answer. But I said, you know, things are getting expensive. I've already told the family that Christmas is not going to be about gifts, which this is not anything new. This is not the first year that we've done it. We've been doing this for years. We spend the time to spend with each other, not throw money down the drain. But not everyone's okay with that. Not everyone is able to make that adjustment and accommodation. A lot of folks are stuck in a spiral, stuck in a whirlwind of keeping up with the Joneses and trying to keep up a look, an image, a facade, whatever it may be. But with that being said, it was like, well, now that you mention it, money's a little tight. My wife's hours got cut back some, and you know, I'm trying to carry the weight, but things just cost more money. And I've had to, I'm just repeating paraphrasing what he said. But he's like, you know, I've had to resort to paying some of my bills on a credit card. And, you know, if I lose my job, then I'll probably end up maxing out my credit cards just to pay my bills because the savings is just not there. And then we get into that catastrophe, which, you know, the money is hard to come by sometimes, even with the banks. The banks themselves are having issues with money, and folks are seeing this more and more often now, where they'll go to a bank and they'll request a cash withdrawal and either be denied, asked to reduce the amount, request that they schedule an appointment so the bank can actually get access to the funds, and or even in some instances be asked, well, what do you need it for? Where are you going? What are you buying? Like, that's none of your business. But here's the crazy part about it, is that banks, although you would think that your money is safe in their safe, it's not. And they don't have a plan really either, besides any plan better than a buddy of mine who's just looking to use his credit card to pay his bills if he ever falls into hard times with. The problem with that is a lot of folks don't have the credit. They don't have credit cards. They don't have high limits. They have bad credit. And then on top of that, if you don't have the money to pay the bill and you swipe it on a credit card, how are you going to have the money to pay the credit card bill when it shows up? And it's not a good backup plan. You got to have a real backup plan, not a safety net that when you fall through that, you have nothing else beneath you. So the banks previously, years past, they would bank on bailouts. The government would come in and bail them out of a jam. And that has since been done away with. And now the bank's recourse is a bail-in. And the crazy part about the bail-in is that what it does is it basically allows the bank the ability to write off the debts instead of banking on the government cutting them a check for the loss. Basically, if the banks become insolvent, the banks become upside down, then they would look to the government for a bailout, for a check. But now the government's saying, no, we're not going to do that, but bail-in is an option. And basically what a bail-in is the banks would have the ability to write off the debts that they weren't able to collect on, ultimately reducing their income and offsetting their losses through a reduction of income, reduction in taxes, et cetera, et cetera. It's just a giant write-off, basically. So the problem with that is if, let's just say a bank has $1 million in deposits, and of that $1 million, they loan out half of it, which is very conservative. They probably loaned out way more than that. And of that 500,000, that $500,000, half of that is unable to be paid back. So now the bank is going to lose $250,000, and the government's solution to this, the bank's solution to this, is just write it off. So basically, if the bank had $1 million in deposits and lost $250,000, that's a quarter. That's 25% of their deposits. They're going to be written off. But they don't actually get the money. It's just a write-off, basically. So how does that affect your bank account? If you had a deposit in that bank, does that mean that your account is now going to be 25% less than what it was to offset this bail-in? Crazy thing is these credit cards and these people that have to and are planning on relying on these credit cards, they're using them to pay bills. They're using them to pay for necessities, food, water, shelter in some certain circumstances, some cases. But in some instances, you can't use a credit card to pay the bill. They're not accepted. Whoever the payee is doesn't accept it. They don't want the processing fee, and or they just don't accept credit cards, especially for the fact that they could be charged back. And then you're saying, well, I'll have to do a cash advance on the credit card, which carries enormous interest. There's a processing fee for that and enormous interest on the balance. So then you add on top of that a rise in interest rates. So now all the money that you're borrowing, all the money that you're charging is going to cost you more to repay because the Fed's raising interest rates to fight inflation. Then we just continuously go down this rabbit hole, continuously digging this hole deeper and deeper with a bigger shovel every day. Then eventually that all kind of just comes crashing down, and people just get swallowed up in this hole that they've been digging. And that's probably the biggest problem that we're going to face here soon, is that when there's a huge amount of people out there that get swallowed up, they get buried in this hole that they're digging, their only options are going to be to pretty much throw up their hands and walk away and default and go bad debt and file bankruptcy and leave a lot of companies and corporations holding the bag. That's just going to take a toll on everyone else who's still paying their bills, who still has money in the bank. It's going to have a devastating effect. And the worst part about it is there's a lot of folks out there that are banking on credit and borrowing and wasting money instead of saving money, reducing their costs and reducing their expenses and making more money, all for what? To buy Halloween costumes, to buy all the fixings for Thanksgiving, to buy a bunch of Christmas gifts that unnecessary. What's the solution?